Trump says we're out. President Trump said no deal. That's right. Breaking news as of just a few hours ago today. President Trump said that the Paris Agreement on climate change, it's time for the U.S. to withdraw. He calls it unfair. He says it cannot go with his America First policy. I don't think anyone is too surprised by this. I can't imagine anyone is too shocked by this. I am not too shocked by this. It would be incredibly difficult for Trump to go along with his America First policies, his America First campaign pledges, if he continued on with this Paris climate agreement. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am back. I know you've probably missed me this week. Had a lot of stuff going on this week, so this is the first time I have had the show. We are on till 9 p.m. tonight, right here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA Live. You can catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. We have a lot of stuff to get to tonight. As usual, a lot of Beyond Reason stuff. We have Trump's withdrawal from the climate agreement. An interesting little bit of news. Now we have a conservative group, a conservative media group going after liberal hosts on MSNBC, trying to target boycotts of them. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about if that's a good or a bad thing. And we have Hillary Clinton, who has blamed everyone but herself once again. Not only that, but I have the voice of reason of the day we'll get to probably in the next hour, and things that made Yaffee Laffy, of course. Oh, and then the Beyond Reason thing with Kathy Griffin, that whole thing. We'll talk about that as well. Oh, and what I think might mean the end of our country. The end of our country. It might be the hashtag Kofifi thing.
Oh, yes.
I think that might signal the end. The end of America, I think, started with a hashtag, with a typo on Twitter, and that is Kofifi. And we have Tom Benson joining me as well, producing. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing fine, enjoying all this fine rain outside.
I was not enjoying it on the way in, I've got to tell you, because my car still doesn't work.
Uh-oh.
So I can't put down the windows.
Uh-huh.
And it was very humid.
Yep.
So I have humidity, can't put down the windows, rain and humidity outside. So my windows were fogging up and I couldn't see.
Well, enjoy your air-conditioned comfort right now.
Yeah, now I'm soaked because of getting in here. So so yeah, thanks for that. No, but we needed the rain here. So I'm really glad we got the rain. So were you surprised, Tom Benson, that Trump pulled out?
No, not at all. No. I'd be surprised if he didn't. Because he made a campaign promise. He made a big deal out of energy situation with the coal miners in West Virginia and Kentucky. And he pretty much was, destined to do this.
Yeah. I wasn't surprised either. You're right. I would have been a lot more surprised if he did not do this. Here's the thing when it comes to this whole Paris agreement. I've been doing a little bit of research on it today. I knew the basics, but I didn't know everything about it. I mean, the basics was that all these countries came together and they decided that they would lower emissions in their countries
by the year 2025, right?
By the year 2025, right. And they would also give money to this global climate fund.
Aha.
And that money would go to smaller countries to help them invest in green energy. Of course, there's always money involved here. But here's the biggest thing that I started thinking. If you have a take on this, you can call 407-916-5400 or text to 23680. We are going to play a bunch of Trump's comments today when he announced it. But my take on this, believe it or not, no matter what your take is on global warming or, this agreement or anything, honestly, the agreement was a joke. And here's why. It was a non-binding agreement, meaning basically these countries got together and the leaders of these countries said, oh, okay, cool, that's a good goal. We're going to do that. Yeah, we'll reach for that. And, oh, you want money for this fund so we can spread it around the world? Sure, we'll do that. And then the crowd gets here, yay, we're going to save the planet. Oh, boy. We're going to lower the temperatures by 1.5 degrees Celsius.
I can tell the difference right now. Yeah,
yeah, I'm sure, which is, almost impossible. The whole thing is ridiculous.
Sounds like an international wealth distribution scheme.
Well, and I'm going to get to that in a second because it basically is. Of course it is. And of course, the United States has to give the most amount of money.
I was thinking about this the other day when they were talking about, he was talking about NATO has to pull their own weight with the financial obligations in NATO. How much are we paying in NATO? I know I'm changing the subject, but this ties in with the climate change thing. How much are we paying for NATO? How much are we paying for United Nations? And how much are we paying for this climate thing? I mean, our dollars can only go so far.
Well, and that's Donald Trump ran on that. He ran on the idea that these other countries kind of need to contribute a little bit more. But in terms of this climate agreement, it was a joke. It was a non-binding agreement in which President Obama basically said we're in. It was not treated like a treaty to be ratified by the Senate, even though it should have been ratified by the Senate. Not only that, but what really matters in the big scheme of things are the policies by the countries. So these countries can get involved and say, this is what we're going to do. And apparently they meet every so often and they say, hey, this is kind of what we're doing to our goals to do this. And everyone goes, yay, look at us, we're so good. But none of it's matter. None of it's real. Because what really matters is the policy of our country. So what really matters is what Trump is already doing in terms of the EPA, in terms of emissions in this country, in terms of regulations on businesses, in terms of subsidies for green energy and all that stuff. And that has to be approved by Congress for the most part, except the EPA goes through the executive branch. And that is all decided here in the country, debated in Congress. So Trump has already started getting rid of a lot of the regulations in terms of what the EPA is doing. He signed a bill making it easier for coal miners in some of the states, which we talked about that on the show not too long ago. A lot of people said it's going to destroy the planet. It's going to destroy the rivers up there. We hear that every time. He's gotten rid of a lot of the other of Obama's clean power plan. So that's what really matters. So this whole climate agreement, whether we're in it or not, it's just words. It's not really enforced by anything real. It's not brought by any real action. It's just to make all these countries feel good about themselves. Except for one part of it. And that one part of it is the part that you brought up, Tom Benson. And that part is the national contributions into the Global Climate Fund.
It's all about the money, honey.
And you are not wrong. And we are supposed to pay for most of that. Now, why do you think that is? Because they would say, well, we should have to pay for most of that because it's our fault. And that's where a lot of this gets to me. Most of this is blame America stuff. We have the most emissions, so we should have to pay, and we should have the most regulations, and we should have to pay most of these other funds, and we should have to redistribute money to other countries because, well, we're destroying the planet. Does anyone else notice that? How all of these things, in terms of climate change, forget the science, because this isn't about science. That's the other thing that's frustrating to me. If it was about science, we would have an honest debate over the science continually. But it's not about the science. It's about politics. And it's about money. And it's about power. The biggest people I see pushing the climate change agenda are not scientists. They're politicians. And they're journalists. And those politicians and those journalists have an agenda. Whether you want to admit it or not, they have an agenda. And their agenda, notice how their agenda is often degrade American business, attack American prosperity. That's what it is. Our prosperity, our innovation, our industry is is killing the planet. It's always America's fault. It's always industry's fault. It's always capitalism's fault. And the solution is always more government control, always more government control, more government subsidies, always more government subsidies, and it's always some kind of scheme of redistribution of wealth.
Political
here
penance.
In the world.
Political penance.
Exactly right. Carbon credits, redistribution of wealth, pushed by a politician, Al Gore, who did a movie that promotes climate change, which is by a politician, a lying politician, in Al Gore. There's always an agenda involved in this stuff. So you have to take it with a grain of salt. Now, I could go over a lot of the scientific. There's a whole bunch of scientific debate I could go over. I've gone over that in the show. But the debate, if we were honest and we wanted to have an honest scientific debate, we would continue the debate. For instance, I read an article this week that they looked at the Hubble telescope, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they found out that there was this giant star, and they thought it was going to, turn into a supernova before it turns into a black hole, because they thought that's what happened. Stars turn into supernovas before they turn into black holes. It looks like this star didn't do that. It just turned into a black hole. Okay? So there's a lot of debate on why that is. There's a lot of questions on many different sides on what that means, or if it really did that. And the debate continues on to try to find out the truth of the science, because the agenda of the scientists usually is just to find out the truth of the science. It's the same thing with things like string theory. There are a lot of different theories going around on if string theory, the origins of the universe kind of thing, is real, how it works, what it looks like. And the debate continues on. If we were honest about that, we would have an honest debate about climate change, because a lot of the models, a lot of the computer models in terms of what the climate's going to look like in the future and what the climate should look like now have been wrong, have greatly exaggerated things. They have. So we should say, well, why is that? And it might have started mostly in the 80s, saying, hey, we might be somewhat contributing to warming of the planet. But the world, the earth, the climate is so complex that maybe there are millions of other variables involved that are not being put into these models that we have to consider. And maybe the temperature gauges now are not the same as looking at ice cores of the past, and maybe you can't compare them exactly. Not only that, but we have a mission now. NASA has just announced a mission to the sun. I was saying we have a mission to the sun, yet I don't have a flying car. But anyway, we're taking a mission to the sun. Why? Because there's a lot we don't know about the sun. We have general ideas about how the sun works, but there's still a lot we don't really understand about the sun and its effects and its changes and what it's going to do in the future, what it's done in the past, and how it affects our climate. The sun's a lot bigger than the earth, and yet we still have a lot to learn about the sun. And yet we like to pretend that, our climate models are exactly right, that we're destroying the planet, that it's doomsday, when we don't even know about the thing that's heating our planet, the sun. My point is, you can have a debate on the science. I'm okay with having a debate on the science. But every time I hear this, all I hear is, there is no debate. Debate's over. You're a denier. We have to do something now. And that is always being pushed by politicians who have an agenda. And that agenda is always, every time, more government control, some kind of redistributionism, and some kind of worldwide agreement that the U.S. has to kind of ignore its own interest and get involved in. So Trump comes along and he says, you know what, I'm going to put America first. I don't see how this fulfills our best interests. And I'm supposed to be upset at that? No, I think it's a good thing, especially when you see countries like China and India who are contributing a lot of emissions, who are polluting their cities a lot more than we are, who don't have to put as much money in, don't have to do it for years, And even when they start doing this stuff, it'll have such a minimal effect that it doesn't even matter. And the other thing that makes me skeptical is everything proves global warming. Have you noticed that? Everything proves it. If it's warm, global warming. If it's cold, global warming. If it's neither, global warming. The sea level rise, global warming. If it lowers, global warming. If there's a flood, global warming. If there's a drought, global warming. If there's neither, global warming. So what a perfect theory. If everything can be blamed on global warming, if I'm a politician, I'm going to want to use that to pass my agenda, am I not? And then you have people like Elon Musk. I have a lot of respect for Elon Musk. He's done a lot of innovations. What he's doing with SpaceX is really cool and other things. He's mad at what Trump's doing, so he says he's going to pull out of the White House Council. Okay.
And Bob Iger just did too.
Yeah, okay. Do you honestly think that Elon Musk doesn't have an agenda when it comes to climate change? His car company is an electric car company that gets subsidies from the government because of climate change policies. Of course, and he has other businesses working on solar panels. And there's a lot of money involved there. So, of course, he's going to support the idea of climate change. Now, I just got a text in from somebody that said, what is your agenda? Talking about me. Well, I will tell you my agenda is the truth, but I wouldn't say just trust me. Because, yes, I have political biases as well. My agenda is what's best for the American economy and the American future. But, don't just go but what I say. I'm admitting that we all have agendas. But let's not pretend that people like Al Gore and Elon Musk and the people in these climate change agreements and the people in the UN and people all these other countries are doing this just because they really want to save the planet. And that this is all just about honest scientific research. Trust me, it's not. Maybe I'm not a scientist, but I understand media and politics pretty well. And climate change has been the perfect tool to promote both of those agendas. Agree or disagree? 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. We're going to get to Trump's comment as well in his speech. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
So we're talking about President Trump's decision to withdraw from the Paris Agreement. He's already getting a lot of flack, a lot of backlash from people on the left and some other people, which is, Trump should be used to that by now. I mean, I don't think he cares that much. So we'll go over some of the reaction to this. I have a cut from somebody from MSNBC we'll get to later in the show that's very telling, actually, that thinks Trump was too cynical in his speech. So even though she was being just as cynical, so we'll get to that as well. But I want to play some of the cuts from Trump's speech today when he talked about withdrawing from the agreement, and we'll react to it. I think he actually makes some good points. So let's play cut one where he actually makes the announcement.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord Thank you. Thank you. But begin negotiations to re-enter either the Paris Accord or in really entirely new transaction on terms that are fair to the United States, its businesses, its workers, its people, its taxpayers. So we're getting out, but we will start to negotiate, and we will see if we can make a deal that's fair. And if we can, that's great.
Now, this is something that's actually not being talked about a lot in this whole thing. He's actually, throughout his speech here, and he talked about it there, he's saying we might get back in, believe it or not. He just wants to make a better deal. That's not a strict anti-climate change agenda that the left tries to make it out to be. He's actually saying, look, we might renegotiate. We might get back in Depends what the deal looks like. I'm not against this entirely. So I don't think any deal is really going to happen because, like I said, there's an agenda involved in what's going on, and most of the agenda is getting money out of the United States. So, and Trump's not going to be on board with that. But I thought it was pretty interesting when you actually listen to him, and he's like, look, we could very well get back in. We could renegotiate. I'm open to different ideas, and there we go. It's kind of like when people are upset that he wants to build the wall, and they think he's just anti-immigrant. But throughout, every time he says he wants to build the wall, he talks about how he wants to put a big door on the wall to let a bunch of immigrants in illegally. So someone who says that can't just be entirely anti-immigrant. But that part's always kind of left out. They make Trump a lot more radical than maybe he actually is. I would say we don't need to be in it, especially since one of the biggest reasons we shouldn't be in it, it's unconstitutional. It was a treaty that was not ratified by the Senate like it should have been. And the reason why is because they knew the Senate wouldn't ratify it. So there we go. Let's get to, go ahead and play cut 2 for me, Tom Benson.
As president, I can put no other consideration before the well-being of American citizens. The Paris Climate Accord is simply the latest example of Washington entering into an agreement that disadvantages the United States to the exclusive benefit of other countries, leaving American workers, who I love, and taxpayers to absorb the cost in terms of lost jobs, lower wages, shuttered factories, and vastly diminished economic production. Thus, as of today, the United States will cease all implementation of the non-binding Paris Accord and the draconian financial and economic burdens the agreement imposes on our country. This includes ending the implementation of the nationally determined contribution and, very importantly, the Green Climate Fund, which is costing the United States a vast fortune.
So there we go. And that last part was very important. That's what I was talking about. The Green Climate Fund, which the United States has to put the plurality of the money involved. I mean, of course they do. We always do. And they would say, well, we're the richest and we're polluting the planet more, so it's always America's fault, so we have to be punished for it. And it's a giant redistribution scheme. It's all about money. Go ahead and play the next cut for me, Tom Benson.
Not only does this deal subject our citizens to harsh economic restrictions, it fails to live up to our environmental ideals. As someone who cares deeply about the environment, which I do, I cannot in good conscience support a deal that punishes the United States, which is what it does. The world's leader in environmental protection, while imposing no meaningful obligations on the world's leading polluters.
Well, there you go. And we've talked about that before, how countries like China, India, Russia, and Iran are the ones that are not giving any money. China said they would give money, but they haven't. They haven't honored anything. So it's hard to blame Trump for wanting to get out. We have to give the money. We have to put in all the work. We get blamed for the problem. And then we don't expect the other countries who are polluting their cities, polluting their countries a lot more than we are, we don't hold them to the same standard. Very interesting how that works. Okay, play one more cut until we go to break. Play the next cut for me, Tom Benson.
The fact that the Paris deal hamstrings the United States while empowering some of the world's top polluting countries should dispel any doubt as to the real reason why foreign lobbyists wish to keep our magnificent country tied up and bound down by this agreement. It's to give their country an economic edge over the United States. That's not going to happen while I'm president. I'm sorry.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. And he's like, look, that's not going to happen. Because he ran on an American First platform. And that's not an evil thing to run on. And I guarantee you, and I'll play the cut of the day from him in the next segment, so you have to stay tuned, but I guarantee you what he said will resonate with a lot of American people. It's another one of those things that the left tries to make him out to be some kind of crazy psycho who can never win again. And I'm telling you that I think it's the opposite. That I think a lot of American citizens look at it and say, I support him. 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you heart Beyond Reason Radio, listen to the Beyond Reason Radio podcast on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. Beyond Reason Radio continues now.
All right, so we have to go over some of the Beyond Reason response from celebrities, from the left, from CEOs on Trump withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement. A lot of this was expected. But, of course, this is Beyond Reason Radio, by the way. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We're on till 9 p.m. tonight. You can go to beyondreasonradio.com if you missed any of the show or check out any of the past shows. You can also call 407-916-5400 or text to 23680 with your reaction. I'm sure you recognize some of these names. Of course, Tom Benson.
Does this come under the banner of a Yaffee Laffy, or is this bonus stuff?
This is bonus. I don't know. This isn't a Laffy, maybe.
All right.
I don't know. We'll see. Some of these might make me laugh. Robert Iger tweeted out, as a matter of, you talked about this already, Tom Benson, as a matter of principle, I've resigned from President's Council over the Paris Agreement withdrawal. The Secretary General of the UN put out a statement about it, upset about it. Bernie Sanders tweeted out and said Trump's decision to withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement is an abdication of American leadership and an international disgrace. Stuff like this usually makes me love what Trump did even more. They make me support Trump even more.
If Bernie's upset, it must be a good move.
I know, right? Okay, so Adam Schiff, representative, Democratic representative, said the withdrawal from the Paris Accord will forever damage our planet and our standing in the world. There is no planet B, Mr. President. I keep hearing that slogan. That's the new one.
You would rather save face or save money, honey?
Yeah. Bill de Blasio said abandoning the Paris Accords will be horribly destructive to the earth and horribly destructive for New York City. Horribly destructive. And they say Trump's the one with hyperbole. not Democrats. It's just Trump's the hyperbole, man. Alex Wagner said Rose Garden photo ops that may not age well. Beer bash after House passage of AHCA. Brass ban for the U.S. exit from Paris Climate Agreement. Withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement is a 4-year process. The stakes for 2020 just got that higher. And, of course, George Tacky. Not Tack. I'm going to call him Tacky. It's Takai. George Tacky, because I like that name better. I don't know if I...
I
don't know if I can say this, to be honest. It's a little... I can say it, but I'm going to skip it for now because it's a little grotesque.
Back in the mid-'70s, New York City was close to default on their money. They're going to go bankrupt. And Ford refused to bail out the city. And the headline on the New York Daily News back then was, Ford to city, drop dead. Well, the headline in tomorrow's paper is going to be Trump to the world, drop dead. An oldie but a goodie comes back 40 years later.
It's funny that you say that because I was just about to read that very thing.
There you go.
From a tweet by none other than Senator Chuck Schumer.
Oh, geez.
He put out a fake headline on his Twitter, a picture. It says World News, and it says Trump to Earth, drop dead. That's our esteemed Senator Chuck Schumer. Very serious. Yep, that's why Trump's doing it. He just wants the Earth to die. The planet's going to die now. Elon Musk, who we talked about before, says he's departing from the councils, the presidential councils, because of this. Leonardo DiCaprio said today our planet suffered. It's more important than ever to take action.
And he tweeted that from his jet flying to Paris, right?
Yeah, no. Doesn't he? He doesn't live in a hut in a forest somewhere, not using any electricity and not eating any meat. And no, it's not the case. No. Oh, okay. All right. So there's a bunch of other stuff. Nancy Pelosi says President Trump's decision defies all common sense. All this makes me, it just makes me love the decision even more. And then here's the cut of the day from Trump. This was the cut that got most of the attention, the part of the speech that got most of the attention, and also got some criticism, but makes a lot of sense. And I guarantee you, regular, average working Americans, there are a lot of them that will hear this, and it will resonate with them. I know the Democrats don't want to hear that. I know a lot of the never-Trumpers don't want to hear that, but I guarantee you it will. Here's what he said.
At what point does America get demeaned? At what point do they start laughing at us as a country? We want fair treatment for its citizens, and we want fair treatment for our taxpayers. We don't want other leaders and other countries laughing at us anymore, and they won't be. They won't be. I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris.
I was elected to represent the citizens of Pittsburgh, not Paris. I'm telling you, regular Americans hear that, and they like it, because they do feel like their politicians don't represent them, don't represent their country, are more worried about stuff going on in the rest of the world instead of what's going on in their own country. And when they hear their president say that, hey, I'm putting you guys first, I'm representing you, they will like it. Now, the mayor of Pittsburgh slammed Trump for that. I'm sure he's a Democrat. He says, as the mayor of Pittsburgh, I can assure you that we will follow the guidelines of the Paris Agreement for our people, our economy, and future. Fact, Hillary Clinton received 80% of the vote in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh stands with the world and will follow Paris Agreement. So there we go. So he's saying that the people of Pittsburgh, you don't represent us, Trump.
That's for
all right.
That's for the choir back home.
Well, yeah. Well, and when you're talking about the downtown areas of a city like that, of course they're going to be Democratic. But when you're looking in the suburban areas and the outside cities of Pittsburgh, people that don't live there but that work there, I bet you a lot of them did support Trump. And some of these other things, I was just reading some of these other tweets by people, and it's just beyond reason. Michael Moore said, "America first, Earth last," is what he tweeted. Said Trump has just committed a crime against humanity.
Oh, boy.
Yep. See, it's such a perfect political tool, is it not, climate change? Because when you can push this agenda that this invisible gas being put out mostly by America is destroying the planet and cause millions to die, you can use that to anything. And people who disagree with that, you can vilify them just like Michael Moore did. What a perfect political tool when you think about it. It's just stunning. So, yeah, he said this admitted predator has now expanded his predatory acts to the entire planet, is what Michael Moore said. Oh, yeah, like you said, Tom Benson. Oh, oh, brother. Okay, so I wanted to play a cut then because there was another response I found very interesting from Nicole Wallace, who was a host on MSNBC.
Oh, boy.
I don't watch the show regularly, but I just happened to catch this cut. This is actually right before her show. She commented on this, and her comments are very interesting, and I thought we had to react. This might be the Beyond Reason comment of the day. I have the voice of reason of the day.
Yeah.
This is the opposite. This is the Beyond Reason comment of the day. This is what she said.
I think the speech belongs alongside American carnage from his inauguration address, and some of his convention speech was incredibly dark. This was that side of Donald Trump, which is the one we've seen the most of in these prepared addresses. But it was an incredibly cynical look at our role in the world. And what's interesting to me is that citizens...
Of course, she's being just as cynical about Trump, but it wasn't really that dark. It was just him saying, look, I want to put our country first, our economy first, our American workers first, and I believe that withdrawing will help our economy. You can disagree with that, but it's never about that. He's dark. It's carnage.
Carnage.
Yeah, well, they know how to put those words in there. She continues on.
of Pittsburgh were joined by citizens of Paris after 9/11 who fought as our NATO allies and died in Afghanistan for the United States of America. So it's a false read on history and separating out citizens.
Stop right there. What the heck is she talking about?
I guess she's alluding to the fact that France sent some troops to Afghanistan when the war on terror started, and they had some losses too.
So because, what does it have to do with the climate change thing?
Well,
what she's saying is, he's looking at our country first, but we should be looking at the world.
That's right. Right.
The international community.
Yeah.
He's not the president of the world. And if he said he was president of the world, then you would be just as upset at that. But he's not the president of the world. He's the president of the United States. And of course, he's going to put the interest of his representatives, his constituents first. Isn't that what a president should do? But this is very telling because that's how a lot of the left looks at it. They don't look at American exceptionalism. They don't look at putting America first. We are citizens of the world, is what she says. Okay, she continues on.
Citizens of Pittsburgh from citizens of Paris is just a cynical, it sort of reveals a very shallow and cynical exploitation of the kinds of voters that think we have to choose between being citizens of a great American city and citizens of the world. That is simply not what a majority of people thought we had to choose between. I think people would like to believe, I think in their most optimistic visions of American leadership, it's about innovating our way out of problems. It's about finding a way to do both, to have our economy flourish without our children dying from asthma. I mean, it was one of the most cynical, sort of prepared sets of remarks that I've heard from the president since Inauguration Day. Really stunning.
So she called Trump cynical.
Yeah.
And then made a comment about how we don't want our kids dying from asthma.
What?
Is that not cynical? Not only that, but it says, why do we have to make that choice between being citizens of Pittsburgh and being citizens of the world? Because we're citizens of America? Because that is what it is?
And because there's more taxpayers making a little over $50,000 than a TV anchor for MSNBC who's making six-figure salary.
Yeah, it's very true.
Big difference.
But I mean, this is very telling, I think, of how the left looks at things. The globalist mentality of people on the left. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't be interested in what's going on in the world. I'm not saying we should block off all trade. I'm not saying that. But there is a point to be made that we are a sovereign country and that our president maybe should look at the interest of our country, the country he is president of first. And that's not a cynical view. That's his job. That's why the representatives, or that's why his constituents, the voters, put him there. And I guarantee you, no matter what she says, the people of America, a lot of average, everyday working Americans, it will resonate with them. They will like to hear a president that does not put the globalist international community before them. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. We'll end this hour with a little bit of fun. We have things that made Yaffee laughy. It's Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. It's been a fast 1 hour. We've been talking about President Trump withdrawing from the Paris climate change agreement. A lot of the left is upset. We went over that. We went over Trump's comment. We went over why I am skeptical of the agreement, why I think it's really just a joke because it was a non-binding agreement that really didn't have any teeth of enforcement. It was just a way for the countries to kind of pat themselves on the back and feel better about themselves. And how a lot of this, as many of you know, is about politics. It's about money. And not really about science. So we talked about that, and then we talked about Trump's comment when he said that he is he's here to represent Pittsburgh, not Paris.
Yeah, he was elected to represent the people of Pittsburgh versus Paris. And, of course, Pittsburgh, of course, is in Allegheny County, which is a blue county, went Democratic. There's only 2 counties in all of western Pennsylvania that went for Clinton. That's Allegheny County and Center County, which is the home of Penn State University, which you would expect would go for Hillary versus Trump. But everything else was red in western Pennsylvania, completely red.
Exactly right. And a lot of those people in those red counties probably work in Pittsburgh or have businesses dependent on Pittsburgh think of themselves as fans or part of Pittsburgh. And Trump is saying he represents them. So even though the people who actually live in Pittsburgh itself maybe went more Democrat, Pittsburgh, you look at the whole metro area, it's probably pretty different. So I thought I appreciate you giving those facts for us. All right. It is that time of the show once again. Yes, it's stuff that made Yaffee laughy. And so I don't know if this makes me laugh or it just, to me, signals the end of our country. Trump's tweet that you've all heard about, where he said the word Kofifi, which was probably a typo.
Sure.
Somehow, probably meant to be coverage. But Trump continued on and said, try to figure out what it means. Enjoy. I thought that was pretty funny, even though it's like he cannot ever admit a mistake, ever. Ever. He can never admit a mistake. So, but what's really even crazier than the actual thing that Trump did is always the reaction. So there has been everything out there about Kofifi. And not only that, and this is what I think might signal the end of our country, Sean Spicer was asked about it, of course.
Sure.
Sean Spicer, this is what was so important to talk about in a press conference. He was asked about it, and Sean Spicer's answer was the president and a small group of people know exactly what he meant.
Perfect answer. Perfect answer.
No, it's not.
Yes, that's going to make all the reporters scratch their head like, what are we missing out on?
It was a typo.
Of course, but he's not going to.
But this is where even House of Cards, the show House of Cards, could not have thought of a country that was obsessed with the typo Kofifi in a Twitter account. Even the House. Now, Hillary tried to make a joke about it. She tweeted out, people in Kofifi houses shouldn't throw Kofifi. Boo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Yeah, didn't really fall flat. Comedy's not one of Hillary Clinton's best fortes. Of course, Ted Cruz tweeted, he said, Kofifi, hard to say, but I hear Al Franken's new book is full of it. I thought that was a better one. Some good stuff out there. All right. In the next hour, I actually want to get to debate in terms of the future of the conservative movement and how we should react to the left. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. One more hour to go. We'll be right back.
Some kind of conviction. Or will I be the hero farewell?
So this hour, I actually want to have a pretty serious discussion, especially with Trump supporters, as I voted for him. Didn't support him in the primary, but I voted for him. Conservatives, people that are concerned about the future of the conservative movement. And this might be a good time, well, this would be a great time, this hour, for you to call and give me your reaction on what I'm going to talk about. Because it's a serious discussion about the future of politics in this country. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. It's something we've talked about before. And, I got to be honest, I've been a little frustrated at some things in politics this week in general, at where things are going in the political debate in general. And because it's just been beyond reason. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. We're on until 9 p.m. tonight live here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. You can catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. You can also send me a friend request on Facebook. If you search Michael Yaffee, send me a friend request. I will accept it. Or you can like the Beyond Reason Radio Facebook page. We're on Facebook Live right now on that Facebook page or on my Facebook page, so you can watch the show as well. We have Mr. Tom Benson producing. How are you this second hour, Mr. Tom?
I'm still ready for action.
Still ready for action. All right, good. And I'm curious what your take is on this, too, as we get to this. But I've been a little frustrated at politics this week, and this is why. I told you about this when I hosted Good Morning Orlando a couple days ago.
Sure.
And you were here, Tom Benson.
Sure.
And I talked about how there was a guy who sent me an email and it basically said I wasn't allowed to say certain things because I work for, quote, the Romney media.
Aha.
And what he was alluding at is that Bain Capital bought Clear Channel years ago. This was even after Romney was involved in Bain Capital.
Right, and Romney started Bain Capital, I think back in 2000, 2001, something like that.
Yeah, and it was a bit of a stretch, and I talked about. So I posted on Facebook about this, and I talked about my main point was this is how conspiracy theories start. If you actually believe that because I work for iHeartMedia, that they somehow control what I have to say, especially about things like Obamacare. I mean, that's crazy stuff. It's not the first time I've been accused of that. I have been accused of not booking guests because they thought Clear Channel told me I couldn't do it. One guy who thinks Pulse, the shooting was a false flag, of course, one of those crazy guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I actually know people who are involved. Like, I know someone who worked at the hospital who saw people coming in.
Mm-hmm.
He called me a liar, said I'm just a part of the media, the lying media complex kind of thing, So I posted this on Facebook, and my main point was this is how conspiracy theories get started. What did people start saying immediately after I posted this? What was their reaction? Well, it was about Donald Trump. My post had nothing to do with Donald Trump. In fact, it was kind of about the human psyche and how sometimes we can get involved in these conspiracy theories for a different reason. Conspiracy theories have been going on for a long time. Just look at JFK, way before Trump. 9/11 truthers, the false flag things, all that stuff. It's been going on forever. And it's just interesting why people believe in that stuff. And that was kind of the main point of my post. And yet people immediately went to the whole thing of, well, when you have a president who constantly discredits all media as fake, this is what you get. Immediately went to blaming Trump, and some immediately went to blaming Fox News. It had nothing to do with what I'm talking about. But see, that is emblematic of where our political debate is. And a lot of it's the fault of its technology. Every time there's new technology, we have this issue in our country. We have to figure out how to do it. It's not the first time. Television, for instance, when that first came online, really changed the political debate in this country. Radio really changed the political debate in this country. The invention of the printing press really changed religious and political debate in the world. Okay, so it's new technology. That happens. But it was just frustrating because that's where everything is now. This hatred of the other side consumes us. And then you get on in these Facebook debates and these social media debates, and you go on Twitter and you see what people are saying about each other, like what people are saying about Trump because he's withdrawing from the Paris Agreement, the whole Kathy Griffin thing, holding up what looks like a severed head of Trump. You see this political debate and you're like, what is the end game here? And so you look at that, and a lot of it's coming from the left, of course. And you look at like college campuses, for instance, and see, with the left trying to boycott and disrupt conservative speakers and college commencement speeches and just speaking on college campuses. And so what happens, for one, we kind of get in our bubble and we say, well, it's all their fault. They started it. When I hosted Good Morning Orlando a couple days ago, I read an article where the guy basically made that point well, we don't want to be at this point, but we have to fight back like they're fighting because they started it. And my first thought was, are we all 5? Are we a country of 5-year-olds now? Oh, well, he started it. What's the end game in all this? The reason I bring this up is I found this story from the Daily Wire, but it's been out there in many different things. I talked about, remember the campaign to get rid of Bill O'Reilly, which worked. And I talked about how while Bill O'Reilly probably did some bad things, the campaign against him by organizations by Media Matters had nothing to do with the harassment. They didn't care about that. They hated him because of his political views. And they wanted to silence him because of his political views. And now the same thing's happening with Hannity.
Right.
They don't like his one story, which is kind of a conspiracy theory story, but they want to silence him because of his political views. And I talked about how that's very dangerous. We can't be silencing speech because we just disagree with them. That's not good. So, and I warned that if you start doing this, our side, the right, the other side is going to start wanting to fight back in a similar way. Well, that's what's happening. Brent Bozell and the Media Research Center just started a new group they call Media Equalizer. The article talks about how this is fighting fire with fire. I keep hearing this over and over again. We need to fight fire with fire all the time. I hear it all the time in our debate now. That's why a lot of people like Trump. Oh, he's fighting fire with fire. We don't really care if some of the things he says are, kind of inflammatory and all that stuff. He's fighting fire with fire. And we want to win. We have to win. So my thought really is, what are we winning? What is the win? How does this war end if we keep going down this social civil war? So, but what the Media Research Center doing in this group, Media Equalizer, is they're now starting to target liberal hosts. They're going after the sponsors of programs on CNN and MSNBC. It says, we will publicly list the advertisers of these programs and asking them to defend their decision to continue airing ads on these shows. Every time one of their on-air personalities go beyond political commentary and engage in smear and hate, we are going to unleash an army of activists to contact these advertisers by phone and through social media to ask them why they are advertising on programs that are biased, repulsive, and morally bankrupt. And I know a lot of people listening right now will applaud that. There's a part of me that says, yeah, hit them where it hurts. That's what they're doing to us. Let's do it to them.
That's right.
Fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
But then I start to go back a little bit here, and I start to think about this here, and I start to wonder, what is the end game of all this? Because basically we are now doing the same thing that we accuse the other side of doing. Because the reason why we are going after these hosts is not because we think what they say is disgusting, but because we disagree with their political views. That's why we're going after them. And this is sort of payback. It's payback. We're fighting back, payback. And I understand the irony of it all. But I have to wonder, if we're just fighting the other side and we're starting to use their tactics in this, now we're becoming the side that wants to silence speech. Do we want to be the side that silences speech? Just because they're trying to do it at us? Do we want to be those people? Where does this lead? Where does this end? Some people out there say, well, you have to do what you have to do. We have to fight back. We have to win. Let me tell you something. I understand winning political debates. I understand winning seats in Congress and all that stuff. But I guarantee you we're not going to get rid of liberals forever in this country. It's not going to happen. There are going to be liberals and people we disagree with in this country all the time. So there is some point where you still have to live with people you disagree with. Believe it or not, I have friends who are liberal, very, very liberal. Should I hate them now because we disagree? Where does this lead? I tell you one way it leads, one place it leads. When we talked about the campuses, what's going on in college campuses, and we see these liberal groups going after these conservative speakers, and we say they're trying to silence speech. We are actually at a point where we have noted liberal commentators and columnists and politicians coming out and saying they need to stop that. We can't silence speech on college campus, even if we disagree with it. Bernie Sanders, Bill Maher, Fareed Zakaria, and others have saying no, we can't support that. But if we start going with this whole approach of fighting fire with fire, because that's all I hear now, are we going to start wanting to disrupt liberal speakers when they want to speak on college campuses, maybe even conservative colleges? Is that where this leads? Is that where we want to go in this country? Because you know what's going to happen at that point? More of the divide, more of the tribalism, and eventually no one's going to want to give their opinion. Everyone's just going to be too afraid to talk. And we're all going to be silent, and political debate will be squashed in this country altogether. It's kind of like what goes on schools when you have these Satanist groups who they go out and their goal is, and they want to put Satanist publications in schools. And it starts this whole debate. Their goal is not to have the Satanist publications in school. Their goal is to shut down Christian talk in schools. So that's going to be the end game here. Is that the end game? So my question for you, if you're listening right now, 407-916-5400, text to 23680. Do you support what the Media Research Center is doing? Do you think it is a good idea to start going after the liberal host and start going after their advertisers and start boycotting those advertisers and having these organized campaigns to get these liberal hosts off the air as a sort of fighting fire with fire to silence their speech? Is that where we should go? Or not? 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. We'll talk more about this, and we have a lot more to get to. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. The place where we talk faith, culture, and politics. Beyond Reason Radio continues.
Yes, this is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. I appreciate you joining the show today. We have a lot of stuff still to get to. We still have to get to Hillary Clinton, who has blamed.
Must we?
You want to skip that part, huh? That's good. Yeah. I think we probably should. So, we were talking about we were talking about the future of political debate in this country, the divide, the idea of fighting fire with fire, the idea, and I completely understand the want to fight back against the left because of what they're doing in terms of silencing speech. Sometimes I just wonder, are we losing our soul? Like, sometimes I think we get so involved in the fight that we forget why we're fighting. Am I the only one who thinks that maybe we should remember why we're fighting, what exactly we're fighting for? Sometimes I think people forget that in this political divide.
Well, the whole purpose of what the MRC is starting to do is because they just want to give them an idea of what the right has been put up with for the past, 2 years, all the time with boycotts dating back to Let's Stop Rush Limbaugh, that type of thing. And what they do is they use tactics that makes it seem like there's thousands of people who are complaining about this person or his thoughts or what have you. And actually, it's nowhere near that. It's just that through social media, they can generate that much response, that much interest. And actually, it's only a handful of people.
Yeah, we actually had that problem here at this station because we play Rush Limbaugh on this station. And we had a point where they were targeting his advertisers, our advertisers, and we had to tell them, look, there is no big backlash against the advertisers of Rush. This is an organized campaign by a handful of people to try to push Rush out because they disagree with his political beliefs. And I completely am against that. I just don't necessarily want to become that too. Now, what Tom Benta was saying is that, this is kind of to show them what it feels like, a taste of their own medicine. But I don't think that's going to stop them. I think this is just going to create more of the problem. And I think there are some people on our side who really do want to silence them. So yeah, we'll keep talking about that. It looks like we have a phone call. It would be nice if I had the call screener up to see who it was. Let me pull it up here real quick. Okay.
We have John on line 1 calling from Orlando, and he wants to know why we always have to take the high moral road.
That was like old-fashioned radio right there. Yes. Who do we have on the phone today, Mr. Tompkins? I like that. Okay, let's take a call here. Let's go to John in Orlando. Hey, John.
Yaffee.
Hey, what's up, man?
Why do we always have to be playing this fictitious moral high road which works against us each and every time? You ever heard the adage of the empty wagon makes a lot of noise, or,
No, I have not. I have that expression. No, I have not.
No. That's not what I meant to say. What I meant to say is the wagon wheel that makes the noise gets the grease or something like that. Okay?
Okay. Never owned a wagon, but go ahead.
Well, why do we have to continuously let the left get away with the stuff that they do to us while we play this so-called moral high road and we end up losing every time? Why?
Well, I don't know if we end up losing every time, but what do you think we should do?
I think we should fight that fire with fire. I think we should fight them back the same way they fight us.
And what's the end game of that?
The end game is that either one of us is going to win, one of us is going to lose.
Win
and
what?
We're going to make sure we're not the ones to be losing.
Win. Okay, no, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. What are we winning?
Yes. We're not winning anything right now.
Well, but what do you want to win?
What do I want to win?
No, what? Like, you keep saying we need to win. Win what?
Win is a figure of speech, okay? This is a figure of speech. Another word.
No, it's not. It's actually a definitive word that means of an accomplishment of something.
I understand that, Yaffee, but I'm using it as a figure of speech.
But okay. I'm trying to understand your logic here. I'm not trying to, do anything. I'm really trying to understand. Because I hear you say, well, we need to do this to win. But win, yeah. What are we winning?
Listen, the left has all of the media. They get away with lying, cheating, stealing, saying anything, creating stories, and they get away with it. And we completely,
I don't know if they always get away with it, but go ahead. Sorry.
It's almost as though we're not saying anything, so to speak, even though we're saying that our voice is not hardly heard. Look at what happens to our president, for example. The slightest little thing. They miss it, it is the megaphone gets.
No, I understand what you're saying. I totally get it. The left has become completely unhinged when it comes to Donald Trump. There's no doubt about it. And actually, I think they've exposed themselves and actually hurt themselves in a lot of cases when it comes to Donald Trump. But I really want to know what we're winning. What is the end game of all this?
What I am trying to say to you, as I said, is that why do we always have to let them get away with the stuff that they get away with?
I'm not saying we should let them get away with it. I'm saying we can fight back with the truth, can't we not?
But we don't, Yaffee. We don't. We don't say hardly anything.
Oh,
maybe it's just not. Maybe it's just not broadcasted. Okay.
Well, I understand. I appreciate your call. He didn't really answer my question. Did you notice that? What are we winning?
We're winning the argument. We're right. You're wrong. That's it.
Is that it? Is that the goal? Just to win the argument?
That's right.
What does that accomplish?
General satisfaction. You ever get ticked off at somebody and you make a complaint to them and you know it's not going to accomplish a thing, but you feel better because you got it off your chest? Exact same thing.
But this is going, I understand what you're saying, but this is going way beyond just arguments. The other thing I was going to ask him, and I should have asked him, is he a Christian? Because if he's a Christian, Christians were persecuted for many years. And should they have fought fire with fire back then? When as Christians, we're told to love our enemies, stuff like that, even despite of persecution. And now we're hearing, well, we're tired of taking the moral high ground. So what about in our faith? Do we take that same approach? Well, we're tired of taking the moral high ground as Christians. We need to fight back fire with fire. Forget our Christian moral standards. Very interesting. Let's take a call from Paul in Sanford. Paul, how are you, my friend?
I'm all right, Mike. How you doing?
Pretty good. What's your comment on all this?
Well, I think that the people who are trying to fight fire with fire, they're not looking to get the same thing you're looking to get. You have a desire to bring about change. You have a desire to affect policy. You basically have a desire to affect the world for the better of the world.
Oh, thank you. I do. You're right.
Man, no problem. But as he said, they just want to win. They want to win this fictitious war that they believe is going on so that they can feel like they're right. To set the record straight, the right doesn't always take the moral high ground. This cycle has been going on for decades and decades and decades.
Well, politics can get pretty ugly, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, politics gets ugly, and this cycle goes on for decades. And for a period of time, you'll have the right that's taking the moral high ground and doing things that are, good and gracious and so on and so forth. And for a couple of decades, you'll have the left that's doing the same. You'll have a scandal on the right. You'll have a scandal on the left. So there's no, we always have to take the moral high ground. Because I can tell you a whole lot of times when Obama was president where the right was not nearly coming close to the moral high ground. But they're not looking at it the same way you are. They're not trying to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. They want to win. You asked earlier.
But win what? I really want to know what we're winning.
They don't know what they're winning either, and that's the problem. You asked earlier if we were all a bunch of 5-year-olds, and I believe that the people that are wanting to fight fire with fire are the populists who have joined in on the Trump movement, who were never really Republicans. They were never really conservative. They just jumped on board because he told them they were going to win. He never told them what they were going to win. He never told them how they were going to win. They were just going to get so sick of winning that they were going to be tired of winning. And so now they want to win. They don't know what they want to win. They don't know how they want to win. They just want to win. They're not on board for conservative principles. They're not trying to. Nobody who's trying to fight fire with fire has uttered the words, the proper role of government. Not one of them. And so you guys aren't on the same playing field. You're just not.
I get what you're saying, Paul. I appreciate your call. Maybe not. I literally asked that guy 5 times, what do we want? Maybe he's right. It's kind of what you say, Tom. We just want to win the argument, I guess.
That's it. And it's sort of like, you ever get into a conversation with somebody, maybe as you're going out the door and you're saying goodbye to somebody, and the person you're talking to has always got to get the last word said? There's a Frasier show on this.
This happens on Facebook. Gosh, it's annoying.
They want to get the last word in all the time.
Oh,
it's just, and that's their way.
There are people like that I deal with on Facebook. And they have to get the last word in,
and that's the way they win.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is just I'm proving I'm smarter than you or something. When I'm just honestly searching for the truth in a lot of situations, and this just doesn't exist. 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime. Your safe space for conservative thought, not for political correctness. Yaffee is back right now.
You know who else is back? Hillary Clinton. Y'all excited? Excited about that?
Oh, yeah.
You just look so excited there, Tom Benson. Yes, Hillary Clinton has been back out there speaking after she, wandered in the forest for a couple of weeks, I guess, lost and dismayed. And she came back. And at first, she's kind of like a kid as well, where she's like, I'm sorry, but. Or I take responsibility, but it's not my fault. Where it's like the parents will force you to apologize or take responsibility, but you don't really believe it. That's exactly what she's doing. She has blamed everybody else for her loss but her. And, well, I have a little montage here, and I got it from the Washington Free Beacon, so kudos to them. Of things she said in the past few weeks, of all the excuses she has for losing to Donald Trump in the election, here it is.
If the election had been on October 27th, I'd be your president. At some point, it sort of bleeds over into misogyny. I got paid for the speeches I made, and it was used, and I thought it was unfairly used. I inherit nothing from the Democratic Party.
What do you mean nothing?
I mean, it was bankrupt.
To assign blame to Bernie Sanders, to the media for focusing on emails.
How much time do we have? The use of my email account was turned into, the biggest scandal since Lord knows when. I also think I was the victim of a very broad assumption I was going to win. The Russians could not have known how best to weaponize that information unless they had been guided. And here's
guided by Americans.
Guided by Americans. If you look at Facebook, the vast majority of the news items posted were fake. You had Citizens United, unaccountable money flowing in against me. Did I make mistakes? Oh my gosh, yes. You'll read my confession and my request for absolution. I did win more than 3 million votes than my opponent.
So there you go. Now, one thing that's kind of amazing to me is she actually blames funding and money. She had one of the most highly funded campaigns in presidential campaign history.
And I think she spent 10 times what Trump spent.
Yeah.
At least.
I mean, really, we're going down the money route. And not only that, but she blames the DNC, that the DNC wasn't really helping her, that they were bankrupt and all this stuff. Tell that to Bernie Sanders.
Tell that to Debbie Wasserman, whatever her name is.
The
Schultz.
DNC was backing Hillary before the primary was over.
Yeah.
And that's what the emails that were leaked revealed, was the corruption in the DNC. Also about the Russians not knowing how to weaponize the information if War for American helped. All the Russians did was leak it to WikiLeaks, and WikiLeaks put it out. There wasn't some organized campaign. They just put it out there. But so I have a list here, actually, of all the things that Hillary Clinton has blamed the election loss for.
Do we have time for this?
I'm going through it. I'm not sure.
We only have 20 minutes left,
I'm not sure if we can actually get through everything here. Okay, we'll just read through the list, okay?
All right.
There's actually 35.
Oh, my.
35 different things. I got this from our buddy Amanda Prestigiacomo on the Daily Wire. She said, okay, number 1, former FBI Director James Comey.
Mm-hmm.
We all know about that. Number 2, sexism. By the way, there's links to everything where she
well, that works both ways. How many times do we hear people say, vote for Hillary, support another woman?
That's a good point. That was basically what she ran on.
Yeah.
Most of her ads were about how Trump's against women and you have to support Hillary because she's a woman. So they definitely were banking on the woman vote, and they didn't get it. Not nearly as much as they wanted. Number 3, the electoral system. Because she won the popular vote.
The old bugaboo.
Yep. Number 4, WikiLeaks. Number 5, Minions. I don't really know what that is. Minions.
Donald Trump's minions or her minions?
Yeah, I guess.
Huh. Okay.
I'd have to look more into that because I really don't know what that means. Somebody else knows what that means. You can give us a call, 407-916-5400.
The little people.
Yeah, Minions. I guess it's including WikiLeaks and other stuff. Now I lost the list. Okay, here we go. Number 6, right-wing media. Of course, the right-wing media. It's all their fault. Number 7, mainstream media. She blamed the mainstream. I know you're laughing because you're like, really? Yeah. Really?
All the media, in other words.
Yeah, I mean, the mainstream media, they were attacking Trump. They still do every chance they can get. So, whatever. Number 8, the Democratic National Committee. We just went over that, which is silly. Number 9, the Democrat Party. It's her own party's fault. Her party's starting to realize that it was really her fault, and we need to get away from her. We're only at number 10. Number 10, 1,000 Russian agents.
1,000, huh? Okay.
Just 1,000.
All right.
They had nothing better to do or anything. They just want to, involve the campaign. Number 11, Vladimir Putin. Mm-hmm. Number 12, Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. That kind of would be an obvious one. That might be the only one that's kind of legit since he won. Number 13, Republican-enabled voter suppression. This is one we hear all the time, voter ID laws.
Yeah.
I wonder if they say, do they call it suppression when you have to use an ID to buy a drink? That's suppression. Number 14, Citizens United. All money in politics, even though Trump didn't need that much money. Number 15, Facebook. Social media, Facebook. It's their fault for spreading fake news and all that.
Oh, okay.
Because, Facebook never spread anything bad about Trump, ever. I never saw that on my feeds. It was all just negative Hillary stuff. Number 16, millions of Twitter bots.
Okay.
Like people on Twitter didn't support Hillary. Number 17, Steve Bannon. Okay. A campaign strategist. It might be fair to say that he was involved. Number 18, Netflix.
Oh, really?
Not really sure where she's going with that.
Because they were home watching TV instead of out in a campaign trail for her? Is that it?
I guess.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to look more into that. That's just on the list here. Maybe the House of Cards show reminds them of the Clintons. I don't know. 19. Alt-right media like InfoWars, the alt-right media, the right-wing conspiracy, usual stuff. Number 20. Bernie Sanders. There might be some truth to that, actually. Bernie Sanders did. But, I mean, there's a reason why all those people went to Bernie Sanders.
That's right.
Because they didn't like you. Because you were a terrible candidate. Mm-hmm. It's not because of Bernie Sanders. It's because of you that a Bernie Sanders was able to rise up. So take responsibility. Number 21, suburban women. How dare they not support another woman? I still find it amazing that everyone I know who says a woman should not be president are women. Every single person I've talked to that tells me a woman should not be president is a woman.
Wow.
I never hear men tell me that, ever. Very interesting. Rural women. So you got women of all demographics, I guess, or areas. Mm-hmm. Number 23, anti-American forces. Okay. Number 24, bad polling.
Really? Okay.
The polling, I guess maybe because they felt they didn't have to vote because the poll said she was going to win.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they had her winning right up into the last, 24, 36 hours?
Yeah. I mean, most of that was local polls. The national polls were pretty accurate, but the local polls were off. Number 25, low information voters. Usually the low information voters help the left. Number 26, content farms in Macedonia.
Say what?
Content farms in Macedonia.
Okay.
Oh. Number 27, fake news. Oh, now she's using fake news. I like that. Number 28, colluding Trump campaign officials. Going with the whole Russia conspiracy stuff. Number 29, stupid Americans who can't tell the difference between real and fake news. Back to fake news stuff.
Sure.
Number 30. I'm almost out of breath. I'm getting a little tired here. Jeez. How she had all this time? Number 30, the broad assumption I was going to win. So since everyone thought she was going to win and assumed she was going to win, I guess they didn't vote.
Right.
That's your fault, Hillary. Number 31, Guccifer. It's WikiLeaks stuff.
Sure.
32, DC leaks. More WikiLeaks stuff. You can't blame the DNC for the corruption that the leaks revealed. No, it's not that fault. It's the leaks themselves.
Kill the messenger, not the message.
Yes. Number 33, data from the Republican National Committee. Number 34, technology. And number 35, the FBI. So
you start it with Comey and you end it with the FBI. And she doesn't include herself anywhere on that list of 35.
No, it's not her fault.
Oh.
Her being a terrible candidate, even David Axelrod came out and said, look, it wasn't Comey's fault that you didn't campaign in Wisconsin, for instance. And even Biden came out and said he knew she was going to lose, that the campaign didn't focus on the issues. And that was really the biggest problem of her campaign. She didn't focus on the issues. It was all attacking Trump. And she thought that would work because Trump is who he is. But it wasn't about Trump personally. It was about what he represented and the idea of Trump, which I've said over and over and over again. But it was also about the fact that they didn't trust Hillary. They don't trust her. And that distrust of Hillary came long before this campaign.
Donald Trump could put out a similar list and end it with, and in spite of all this, I won. What does that tell you?
That's a good point. There were a lot of forces against Trump. No one thought he could win. It was forces in his own party, forces in the other party, forces in the media, and he still won. So, that's actually a really good point. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
You know what's Beyond Reason? Yaffee is now on YouTube. Go to YouTube now and just search Beyond Reason Radio. Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. If we've been on since 7 p.m. tonight. If you missed any of the show, make sure to check the podcast of the show anywhere podcasts are available. I talked in the first hour about the fact that Trump has decided to withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Climate Change Agreement. I talked about why I think it's pretty much a good thing, why I understand he did it, comments that he made, his comment on, he's here to represent Pittsburgh, not Paris, so on and so forth. So if you missed any of the first hour, make sure to check the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. And so we talked about that and my whole take on climate change, why I think most of it's motivated by politics. It should be pretty obvious to a lot of people that there's political agendas involved, there's money agendas involved, and we have to be. And science is about being skeptical. But the debate's over, we're told. Constantly, it's over. So we talked about that. We just went over Hillary Clinton and her excuses for why she lost instead of course, her. And so a lot more stuff. So make sure you check the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. So for some reason, I've decided to go through Twitter right now. I don't know why I would do such a thing. And I just put in the hashtag Kofifi.
Oh, yeah?
Because everyone knows about Trump's. This is the important news of the day.
Of course.
Tom Benson.
Yeah.
What does Kofifi mean? Because Trump accidentally put that in a tweet, and then he said, try to figure out what it means.
The scariest thing about that whole situation is it germinated in the early morning hours, like at midnight to 1 a.m. Who's up at that hour looking at their Twitter feed?
Well, I guess Trump is, though, if he's the one who put it out there, too. But this is most of it's negative against Trump, but it's still it's still going on of people saying, people trying to say what Kofifi means. Some people are just putting it on just randomly. It's just crazy stuff. There's one here that says that shows the Pope with Trump, and the Pope says "Holy Kofifi." So there's one. There's actually a video. There's a video out there that actually Bryce, who calls screens for the morning, showed me.
Sure.
That I would encourage everyone to look up. Where it's a parody video where, you saw the pictures of Trump next to the Pope.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they're standing there and the Pope never smiles.
Right. They look very
standing there smile.
Very dour, very sour. Yeah.
And it did a close up of their hands, and it showed Trump trying to hold his hand. And the Pope kept hitting it away. Because you remember the whole Melania controversy.
Sure.
Where Melania said, apparently looked like she tried to hit away Trump's hand, and everyone's like, oh, their marriage is in shambles because of one little thing. And so there's a parody video out there of the Pope doing it. It's so funny. It looks like
the Donald want to hold the hand of the Pope, and he's bashing him away.
It's so funny. So I wanted to end the show, though, with some unity. Believe it or not, there's some unity out there, Tom Benson.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that Kathy Griffin has done the unthinkable and unified the country.
Against her.
Exactly right.
Well, there you go.
It turns out that a lot of liberal journalists and other leftists came out and agreed that what she did was absolutely wrong. Chelsea Clinton tweeted, "This is vile and wrong. It's never funny to joke about killing a president." Deborah Messing said it wasn't right when people lynched Obama effigies, just as what Kathy Griffin did isn't right now. So Soledad O'Brien said the Kathy Griffin thing is so upsetting and disgusting. Jesus, what is wrong with people today? Have we all lost our humanity? Those are from people who are not fans of Trump. So Kathy Griffin, maybe we should thank her for bringing the country together against her craziness, because it was just Beyond Reason. All right, I appreciate you all listening tonight. This has been another edition of Beyond Reason Radio. Make sure to send me a friend request on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at Beyond Reason R. Listen to the podcast anywhere podcasts are available, and well, have a good weekend. I'll catch you guys next time.